Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is in regards to training, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons of having a training partner. So I was talking with a trainer actually yesterday, and this topic came up, and it was a fun discussion, and they actually suggested that it be a podcast topic because they thought it might be helpful and fun for people to hear of the pros and cons. And the topic between us came up because they had listened to a kind of a high-level coach online talk about the importance of training partners and how they're absolutely necessary in order for someone to become their best. And the trainer that I was talking with, him and I kind of disagreed a little bit. So it was kind of fun to have a conversation with someone else who has very good knowledge and experience in the realm of like physical health, and discussing together about how we disagreed with someone else who also had a lot of knowledge and experience in the health world. So it was a fun kind of conversation in the sense of like, not who's right or wrong, just the different viewpoints that can make something feel right or wrong. So I wanted to kind of talk about that, and it would be kind of give you guys some food for thought. And maybe if you train in one manner, you might learn the benefits of the other, and maybe you want to go that way, or it'll help you just feel more confident with the way in which you're deciding to train. So when it comes to a training partner, I've trained, like I've been working out on my own for 20 years. So 19 of them was with weight. The first year was kind of body weight, push-ups and sit-ups and stuff. And so it's been 20 years, though, because for those push-ups and sit-ups, I was accountable for that. And I could have, trained with somebody if I wanted to and had a joint goal together, but I did do it by myself. So in these 20 years, I have spent the majority of it training by myself. However, I have spent probably a cumulative, if I had to kind of give a number to it, I'd probably say maybe like 5 or 6 years of training with a partner. So I've had a lot of different partners over the years, and I wanted to kind of just highlight 3 different ones and talk a little bit about the pros and cons that I felt when I had them as partners. So the very first training partners I ever had was my best friend when I was growing up in high school, and it was Chad. So I trained with Chad and his brothers, and all those dang jerks looked way better than I did, even though I worked harder than they did, in my opinion. So I trained every freaking day. I ate nothing because I thought at the time that eating nothing would help me lose weight. So I definitely didn't know what the hell I was doing. But man, I didn't lack of effort. So I trained every single day. Probably when I got my weight set at 16, without exaggeration, I might have missed maybe 10 days a whole year for the first like 3 to 4 years. So, like for example, when I started my push-ups and sit-ups goal at 15, I started on my birthday, and within that first year, I only missed 10 days. The entire year of doing 250 push-ups and 250 sit-ups every day. So I'm pretty good at adherence. So I trained all the frickin' time, and I was strict with my food. Now I was strict in an inappropriate way. I was under-eating. However, I felt the discipline or the strictness of that. So I deemed myself to be working really hard at the time. And yet, Chad and his brothers were all stronger than me. They were leaner than me. They looked better than me. So they're all a bunch of jerks. So I actually love them. They're awesome people. It was a great motivator because I couldn't rely. There was basically nothing that I could say that would justify why they looked better and were stronger than I was. So I couldn't say, I'm working harder. Didn't matter. They were still stronger and better looking. So which were my goals. And it didn't matter if I was being more disciplined. They were still stronger. They were still better looking. So nothing that I could have used as an excuse mattered. The truth was still the truth. So it taught me right away that genetics, some people have better, some people have worse. I didn't have the worst genetics in the world, not at all, but I definitely didn't have as good as they did. So it was a good example to see the difference in genetics, and also to recognize that if I worked my ass off, I could at least, hang with them. So maybe I would have to work a little harder in order to just kind of stand still. with them, and that's just nature of life. That's how life goes. So some people are gifted more genetically, some people are gifted more mentally, some people are gifted with certain talents. So some people just get to start further ahead than everyone else. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to finish in the same places that they started. So just because a certain person started ahead of you doesn't mean they're going to finish ahead of you. So I learned right away that work ethic mattered. So any excuse I had was total bullshit. It didn't change the truth. The truth was the truth. Now I could put on some, as they say, rose-colored glasses and try to bullshit my way into seeing something different, but I'm glad I never did that, because I would have just been a crazy person and everybody else would have seen the truth. So I'm glad I didn't turn into a crazy person. So that was a really huge benefit for me, was the mental discipline that I learned training with them. Now, there wasn't really many cons to it. I enjoyed training with them a lot. If Chad ever listened to this, I doubt he would because he's a pretty busy dude, but if he ever listened to this, he would die laughing, and he knows it's true, that he skipped leg day all the freaking time. so it was, they were super helpful and fun to have around for chest and arms. Back was, they were pretty much showing up most of the time. Leg day, you'd hear crickets. So he never trained legs, which annoyed the crap out of me. So I would try my darndest to try to catch up to him by being in the gym on the days he wouldn't. So again, that was a really good mental strength kind of thing. And I did learn how to train legs on my own without having to rely on somebody, and it was a good experience all for the good. So no cons on training with Chad and his brothers. So I did also train with my mom for a while. Whenever she first got into lifting weights, we would train together, and so she became my training partner. And it would be interesting because most people would wonder how that would work. I am larger and stronger than my mom, but yet we were able to make training as training partners work very well. So when we were on machines, we would just, pull the pin and select different weights. If we did free weight stuff, we would kind of be next to each other, and I'd, select one set of dumbbells and she'd select a different. There was also just training structures we could use in which we weren't having to use the exact same machine or the exact same free weight, like a barbell or something, at the exact same time. So there were different structures that I would employ into our workouts and make it easier for it to work together. So one of the pros of that was that it really taught me a lot because although when I trained with Chad and his brothers, we would all often collectively come up with the workout, but usually I was the one bringing in kind of newer fun ideas because I'd read a lot and kind of I found it very interesting. So it wasn't so much a teaching role as it was a friendship role. And with my mom, it was a teaching role. So I was the one teaching her what to do. So as I was teaching her and then I was doing it, it was teaching me even more a higher level of accountability, because I could not ask my mom to put in her best if I wasn't doing that first. So I kind of had to lead by example. So that was one of the biggest benefits. And then the other benefit was, since there was such a difference in strength, sometimes with Chad and his brothers, I would try to do the weight that they could do. And it often led to my form being kind of crap, but at least I was moving the weight and didn't look like a punk and had to do less weight. With my mom, there was really no comparison, so it didn't really matter what weight I chose, whether it was, 5 or 10 pounds heavier or 5 or 10 pounds lighter, didn't matter. So I really got to kind of fine-tune form, focus on just good quality movement while training with her, rather than worrying about trying to keep up with somebody stronger than me. So that was very beneficial. And then also my mom got to be very mentally tough, to where we both worked out to the point that sometimes we'd throw up because we were training so hard. And it was really rewarding, fun, motivating, all the positive terms you can think of, to have a training partner who was willing to push that hard. So that was super duper awesome. So there's not really a lot of cons with training with my mom either. And then training with one of my best friends ever, Tommy. So he was one of my first trainers. Actually, he was the first trainer for me at the gym. And we loved training together. And he had a really high IQ. He still does. He has a high IQ for training and loving understanding how the body works and introducing new and awesome fun techniques, creating variety all the time. So we would do the stupidest crap together and beat the living hell out of ourselves. But it was totally fun, and we both really loved it. So the workouts would maybe last, 2-3 hours, and we'd go eat a big, 1,000-calorie burrito at most. So it was just super fun to have somebody else who was so passionate about what I was passionate about. And there actually is a negative, that I wanted to mention about training with Tommy. So sorry, Tommy, if you're listening to this. But you'll understand what I mean by this. Is I love training. And when I get into training, I just feel good. So it releases all the happy hormones in your body. Even though your body's screaming, your muscles are screaming, your joints are hurting, you just feel fantastic and you feel like you're crushing the world. You're becoming a better person. You just feel on top of the world. So everything's wonderful. The hard part was training with somebody else who also felt that same way. Our volume and our intensity of sessions went astronomically way above what they should have been. So when you get two nutcases together and we start training like crazy, I mean, we'd do like squats and deadlifts for 3 hours, and that's not an exaggeration, literally not an exaggeration. So I remember I trained one time with another person named Cody who had a similar mindset, and we did a deadlift workout that consisted of working up to, I think, 495 for as many reps as we could. We then went 405 for as many reps as we could, then 315 for as many reps as we could, and then we still went to go finish our entire upper back workout that took another hour and a half, 2 hours. So I set like some crazy PRs at the time. I think I did 405 for like 19. I did 315 for 30. So I forget what I did for 495. But then we went and still finished a whole freaking workout on top of that. So training with people like Cody and Tommy I'd trained with for a longer time, we both loved training so much that we actually weren't able to maintain kind of reasonable progressions. So we would come into the gym and just crush the world and take enough pre-workout so the next day we showed up we could do the same thing. So it was awesome time of growth. But that's definitely something that would have been a limiter of us training together, was because we beat the crap out of ourselves. And every once in a while you have like, my shoulder's kind of annoyed, my knee kind of annoyed. And like we would have like waves in our training intensities because we'd overdo it some days, and that would force us to not be able to do our best on the other days. So you can hear in my stories that I really did enjoy when I had training partners, because I've been extremely fortunate to have excellent training partners over my years. So I can't remember actually a single training partner who wasn't exceptional, in the sense of what most people have to deal with nowadays, or what I see in the gym or hear in stories is, people showing up late or people not showing up with their best effort. So I had training partners who, if we said, hey, we're going to train out at 4, they didn't show up at 4. They were here, ready to go, already kind of warming up on their own at 4 o'clock. So we also I've been fortunate to have training partners who, when they walk through the door and you'd say, hey, how's your day? It'd be great. And then at the end of the workout, you find out they hadn't eaten all day and they didn't sleep last night, and their dog died that morning. But they didn't tell you any of that shit. They knew that they were there for training. Training was what's most important. You got that out of the way first, then you talked. So I've been extremely lucky to have fantastic training partners. And that's allowed me to see the benefit of training partners. And part of that is accountability. So that's one of the pros of having a training partner is, if you both agree to train at, say, 4 o'clock, you now know that someone's standing there waiting for you, so you better get your ass to the gym. So rather than lollygagging and going at 5 or 5:30, you're not going, talking yourself out of it, you show up on time and you get ready to go by 4 o'clock. So there's accountability to show up. Then there's also accountability to put forth some damn effort. So if they bothered to show up and you bothered to show up, if you just lollygag through the workout and whine and complain and bitch the whole time, they're going to get mad at you. You're going to do a disservice to their workout. And then, so having a partner kind of helps you when you do show up on time. It helps you show up with the right mentality, because it's not only for you, you're actually doing this for them as well. So that's a huge benefit, is just the accountability, and not just time, showing up on time, but also your mental state during the workout. Then also, training partners are great for giving you that extra push, like just in general. Like overall, every workout, you'll train a little bit harder because there's somebody sharing the journey with you. And like I said, that turned into a con with Tommy and I, because we almost that we didn't need an extra push. We actually needed to tell each other to calm down, which we have learned now at older ages, to learn how to calm down and kind of cap off our workouts. And then the other benefit is that training partners help because we all go through waves and stages in life. We all go through ups and downs, times where we're like more highly motivated, times where we're less motivated. You know, we kind of like have that swing. And without somebody else there, you're going to be kind of like susceptible to your swings to the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Whereas with a training partner, they're going to have different swings. So when you're low, they're high. When you're high, they're low. So you guys can kind of work to balance each other out. So that's one of the other benefits of a training partner is it kind of improves your adherence over the long term. Because when the days you don't feel like going, they're going to be there to kind of motivate you and give you that accountability to go, and you're going to do the same for them. So that's a real quick rundown, just kind of 3 big benefits of a training partner. Another one I'm going to throw in there real quick, which I don't have in my notes, but is also technique accountability. So having a training partner, they can watch you move and give you feedback on how you're doing. And that's if you have an educated, honest training partner, which is an enormous assumption. So like I said, I was very lucky to train with people who were also trainers a lot in my life, and also people who were just self-educated and really paid attention to form. So whereas I see it all the time, unfortunately, even in my gym, where you'll have training partners who tell each other great job, and they're not. It's a horrible job. So the squats aren't even close to parallel. The deadlifts are locked out through their lower back, not their glutes. You know, they're throwing the weights around on their bodybuilding movements, and they're just neither one of the people know that the quality isn't there. So unfortunately, the feedback they're getting is just enforcing bad quality or bad effort. So sometimes if you have an uneducated training partner or yourself is uneducated on technique, you can really only correct yourselves to the amount of what each of you know. So that's something to consider, is if you do have a training partner but both of you are kind of newer to lifting, do not take each other's advice. Go find somebody who has more knowledge. So, and also, even if you have been doing it for a while, but you haven't been exposed to a lot of people, a lot of viewpoints, a lot of opinions, you want to go ahead and do so. So if you think you're right, but you're the only, like your way is the only way you know, well then of course you're going to think it's right. So you have to go out there and learn some different viewpoints, get some opinions from other people, get some other people to talk and listen, ask them what their favorite things to do are, what are the things that they look for when they do certain movements. So the more people you talk to, the more perceptive, whatever that term is, you know what I mean. So perspectives, hey, there you go. The more perspectives that you take into account, you can better analyze your own perspective and know where you maybe need to fill in some spots, but also have some confidence of where you know you're right or believe to yourself to be right. So some cons of a training partner. So what are the negatives of a training partner? Is training has to be less specific for you. So because now there's another person involved, your training has to address their needs and your needs. And not everyone is the exact same. So what is best for you and best for them sometimes can't be done 100% directly in each direction. So you have to find a compromise. So your training does have to be compromised so it's less specific for your individual needs. And that's just how it goes. So that's the trade-off that you make when having a training partner. So maybe you like the pros enough that you're willing to give up on some of that degree of specificity in your own training. Another one we have is when you train with someone, you have to adhere to the schedule in which you guys set. So this is one of the main reasons why I do not train with a training partner right now, is my job is highly, highly changeable every day in terms of what time things get done. So I have to do the same things every day, pretty much. But training times for clients change from day to day. You know, somebody schedules, like reschedules, somebody changes this, changes that. I also have work and a business that I run outside of the gym that pulls me in different hours in the way that it's structured as well. So there's a lot of variability to my day that if I were to tell somebody, hey, we're going to train every Tuesday at noon, man, I'm going to be missing like half those things. So I would be a horrible training partner in terms of consistency of showing up at a certain time. So that's one of the main reasons why I do not work with a training partner right now, is it gives me that freedom to train whenever I can best fit it in between all my other stuff. So that would be a con, is again, when you have a training partner, you have to adhere to a consistent schedule that maybe doesn't always work best for you. And then I said the other con, which was more of a rare example, would be when Tommy and I were together, we would overtrain too much. So we had to learn how to dial ourselves back. And that is something to consider, is if an example of this that actually is common is in CrossFit. So a lot of the CrossFit athletes that I've worked with for strength, they just, oh my God, they overdo everything. And it's because they want to be the best they can be at everything, so therefore they do everything to the max, and they beat the living shit out of themselves. They have a ton of injuries all the time, or nagging injuries, and they have a reduced performance because they're running fatigued all the time. So when I can get my hands on some of the CrossFit athletes and pull back on some of their volume, they actually get better. So it's like somebody who over diets for fat loss. So they're like, I'm going to starve myself and lose all the fat I can. That doesn't work. So you lose weight initially because you're starving yourself, but eventually your body gets grumpy, it gets mad, and the process stops working. So the same thing happens with a lot of CrossFit athletes, is they beat the living shit out of themselves and way overdo their training to the point where actually if they back down, their performance improves. So I've seen that a ton. So that would be an example of, if you have two really high-end CrossFit athletes and no one is there to monitor their volume, they're probably going to go astronomically too high and actually start hindering their results and actually causing more injuries, nagging injuries, and maybe turning into bigger, larger injuries. So that's a quick kind of rundown of pros and cons of partners, and a summary that I would tell somebody to do. Like, what would be my answer? Should you have a partner? Shouldn't you have a partner? And my answer would be, is learn how to train alone. Ooh, excuse me. So learn how to train alone. Learn how to be self-accountable for your discipline and your work ethic first. Then adding a training partner helps. And the reason why is because if you are dependent on that training partner for you to get your best results, you will never get your best results. Okay? We are our individual selves. We're human. We make mistakes. We have good days, we have bad days. We do things right sometimes, we do things wrong sometimes. We show up on time, sometimes we show up late. There's a lot of variability just within a single individual. Now, add another individual to that. You just doubled all of your problems. So maybe you told your partner, like your training partner, you're supposed to work out at 4, and then all of a sudden you get a text at 3:30 and they say they can't make it. You still need to get your ass to the gym at 4 o'clock. You still need to work to the full amount. You still need to be self-disciplined, self-accountable. You need to do everything right as if they were there, even if they're not. So I would urge people to develop that on your own. So maybe at first you can train sometimes with a partner and sometimes without, or just take some time and train like without a training partner for a while first. But you definitely need to develop that inner discipline, that inner kind of character. So that way when you add someone to it, they add to you, but their deficiencies won't cause a deficiency in you. Okay? So that's a big, big, big component, is learn how to train and be self-accountable first. Then when you add somebody to it, it's just only going to make things better. So you won't end up using that person as an excuse for you to be lazy and do things wrong. So, and then I wanted to end with real quick, like what I think are 5 good rules of a training partner. So if you do want to have a training partner, I think that you should lay out some rules right away. This is going to sound a little bit ridiculous because it sounds like I'm giving you dating advice. So as if, like, if you're about to go date somebody, you probably want to decide, you know, do you want to have kids or not have kids before you guys get too serious? You know, where do you want to live? Where do you want to live? You know, ask some of those basic questions. Get that stuff out of the way before you get too emotionally attached and things kind of get sideways and don't go well. So the same thing with a training partner. Before you accept a training partner, commit to it, and then find out they're late every damn day, that's going to get really annoying. So there are some ground rules that you can lay down, and I think that helps on both ends. So even if you don't take this list and actually present it to a training partner, having this in mind does help. So that way, if you're expecting these things from a training partner and you're not getting them, you'll know that you're kind of justified. So, one of the rules, these aren't necessarily in a specific order, but one of the rules is to show up mentally ready. So I do not care if my training partner's body is there, if their mind isn't. So if they're not showing up ready to kill weights, then I'm going to be super pissed off because I'm there to do business, to move forward and progress. So if they show up on time, but they just want to BS about their day and, willy-nilly, bounce around the gym doing nothing productive, that's going to drive me insane. I'm going to usually scream at them. So that would be the first thing, is show up mentally ready. The second thing would be to show up on time, obviously. So you want to show up on time, and that doesn't mean arrive to the gym at the time you're supposed to start the workout. That means be ready to work out when you start to work out. So if you're starting to work out at 4, get your ass to the gym at like 3:40, 3:45, change your shoes, change your clothes, get a little warm-up going, get yourself acclimated to the area, get your protein drink ready, whatever the hell you got to do. But at 4 o'clock is when you start the workout. It's not when you walk through the door, then hee-haw around for 20 minutes. Okay? So you be ready on time, not show up on time. Be ready on time. So be ready on time and be ready mentally. I think those are the two biggest things you can do. And then the third thing that I think is also, good enough to be included here in the top 5 is do not complain before or during the workout. So I had a training partner one time named Dallas, and him and I would train, and I know that dude did not feel good every day we met, because he would get up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, and he had a long, full day of work. And even though I did as well, I knew how miserable I would come into the training session sometimes at night, and I knew that he was coming in the same or worse. But he'd walk through the door and I'd say, "How's your day?" "Good." "How's yours?" "Good." "Okay, let's go." So you wanted to be polite and ask, the person, but you don't really give a shit, and you just want to get to work. So he understood that. So we never complained, we never whined about anything. You just show up, you work out, and then towards the end when the main stuff is done and kind of the intensity has come down a little bit, then all of a sudden you can laugh and say, "I can't believe I made it through this workout, I haven't eaten since noon." And, then they would be like, "Yeah, I only slept like 3 hours last night." So, but you save that stuff for afterwards. So the world is full of enough negativity that you don't need to bring that in and slap it in your face right when you're trying to start a workout. So life happens. You will not always be well fed at the workout. You will not always be well slept. Things are going to get in the way. Your car will have broken down. Your dog will have left you. All the country song things, or whatever you can think of. Life happens. But you don't need to bring that in the gym. So when you show up, like we said, show up, be ready on time. Not show up on time, but be ready on time. Be mentally ready as well, and then don't complain. Just show up ready to work, shut up, and get the work in. Okay? Now, the last two I think are really important, and I want to kind of hammer home before we kind of cut this off, is you are responsible for your partner's progress. So if you accept a training partner, you are accepting responsibility for their progress. You are there to make sure that they move forward. You're there to call them out on any bullshit that's necessary. But also, you're there, and you can't let your performance or your poor mindset or any negativity of you negatively impact their progress. Okay? So if you agree to that, you are agreeing to some responsibility for their progression. So I actually had an example of this that I thought was, I'm bringing this up because it does work, and it's going to sound like I'm boasting and egotistical, and maybe I partly am, but it's also a pretty darn good example. Is I was benching with a training partner once, and I broke my collarbone while we were benching. So I had broken it before, so it was probably already soft or kind of not healed well. But I broke my collarbone, and you could see my shoulder was shifting and moving around. I actually got kind of sick, and my face was kind of white. And they asked if I wanted to go to the hospital. And there was 2 reasons why I said no. One reason was because if I truly did break it, I'm probably going to have to be put in a cast, and I'm going to miss the next couple workouts. So I don't want to miss the rest of this one. So it's already broke. Let's just finish the workout, get me a good one, so that way whenever I have to take some time off, I'll already have a good workout in. So I can end on a good note. The other part was they would have missed the rest of their workout. So even if I had gotten sick enough where I couldn't work out, I wouldn't have wanted them to take me because it was already broken. They might as well finish their workout. So I didn't want to be responsible for them missing the rest of their workout. So I did the workout with them as best as I could. We finished it, and then we went to the hospital. So But that's the idea of it is even though I had something negative happen to me,